We currently work with 380 brands in 42 different countries, pretty much have every continent covered except for Antarctica. And there's about 11,000 pieces available to purchase on the website. We actually have a French version of our website. 30% of our customers come from North America, and 20% of our customers come from Australia, the Middle East, and Far East Asia. So, last decade, the 2000s. The last decade was the decade of mass production and fast fashion. It's in the 2000s where the world became a smaller place thanks to technology, thanks to outsourcing production, and the world experienced unprecedented growth until the financial crisis struck in 2008. But during that decade, you've had brands like H&M, Topshop, Zara that have massively expanded, and at the end of the day, they've expanded their footprint on a global basis to a point where you could be walking down the street and you're literally going to run into somebody wearing the same product that you've purchased as well from Zara or one of these brands. So what were you left with? You were left with buying products that were mass-produced, low quality, and completely impersonal. This decade, technology has gone even to another level. It's made the consumer more savvy and smarter than ever. Just think about all the tools that you have at your disposal, just starting from a Google search, all the way to price comparison engines, to all the various different websites that offer different products from all over the world. Think about sites like Pinterest, that allow you to scour the world on the web and sort the products that you like, the ones that are to your taste. The consumer has become extremely savvy this decade. And that means that people also, in fashion, buyers, people who are finding product and putting product in front of customers, need to adapt to this new customer. So what customers have been experiencing, and brands such as ours, Botica, who are sourcing products, have to remember that in the last 10 years, people have been used to seeing the same brands, the same products. It's the same boring marketing messages that they're hearing, and they can cut through the noise, they can cut through the bullshit, excuse my language, and it's the same formulas that are being used in campaigns, in PR, in marketing, and customers are clearly getting bored from it. This decade, this coming decade, is the decade of personalization. And feel free to credit that quote exactly to me if you ever use it again. As I mentioned, the consumer is a lot more sophisticated. They're not just looking to be different, but they're looking to really build a relationship with their product, with the brand, with the designer. They want to know who's the maker, where is it made, how is it made. They really want to go into the story. You know, for example, this is an accessories designer based in Japan, in Tokyo, called Hideki Yoshida, who is the designer behind the brand Flake, which we sell on our website. I want to find out more about Hideki. Like, I want to know what his personal style is, what his story is, how does that story translate into his pieces and into his jewelry. And it turns out Hideki is an architect. Hideki went to architecture school, started working at an architectural firm, and just realized that that's not what he wanted to do, and started to create jewelry based on geometry, using various different geometric shapes like pyramids, circles, and whatnot. And then, once I find out a little bit more about Hideki, some of you might not care about his story because it doesn't really conform with your style. But in my case, I like math, I like geometry. I'm a big fan of Japan and Japanese designers in general. So I can reflect my own personal style onto his story. So there needs to be a story when you're sourcing nowadays. Customers want that. This is, for us at Botica at least, where it all starts. There needs to be a story in the background of the designer, the inspiration of the collection, the materials that they used, the techniques that they employed. Somewhere there needs to be a story. You have to go find that story, dig it out, and then also communicate it with the customer, whether it's online or whether it's through a store. Communicate the story, because when you communicate the story, you're creating desire in the product for the customer. This is quite basic, but knowing your market is quite important. I mean, these are very standard questions, but if you're a store owner or if you're a buyer for a department store or a chain of boutiques or even online, I would actually recommend that you go even deeper than this. I remember last year at one point, I took a list of our top 100 customers, the people who kept coming and coming back to Botica and purchasing and purchasing and purchasing time again. And that's when I just started emailing them one by one and telling them, I just want you to answer one question. Why do you keep coming back? And then I started hearing why they wanted to come back. We love the stories. We love the fact that we can travel through shopping on your website. We love this, we love that. Hearing it from our customers actually allowed us to understand our own unique selling point better than what we thought it was. We just thought, well, we have all these amazing brands that people don't find anywhere else. That's why people come to Botica. No, it was really the stories, it was the one-on-one communication with the designers, and it was the fact that they could travel through the world and shop on our website. So I'd highly recommend that you try that exercise out. Geography is quite important. I was listening to the panel that was right here before me, and one of the panelists actually mentioned that you should look at the world as one big global place and not just think about things on a regional basis, such as the Middle East on its own, for example. And I completely agree with that. I mean, the world is a tiny place now. We're all in one big village, and if you are sourcing for fashion product and you really want to stand out, find pieces that are different, then you're going to have to reflect that global style, because we're all impacting each other, whether we realize it or not. We're feeling an impact here from Asian fashion, from US fashion, from European fashion. Everybody is interrelated, correlated, and affecting each other. So when you're sourcing, you also have to be creative in that sense. And we try at Botica to shy away completely, when we can, from the major fashion capitals, so Paris, London, New York, Milan. We try to stay away. We try to go to places a little bit more off the beaten path, places where you're not expecting to find the next emerging worldwide global brand. And the reason why we go there is mainly because, well, we like to find new brands and find them first. And you're not likely to find, the buyers from Harvey Nichols, the buyer from Neiman Marcus and whatnot, rummaging the souks or rummaging the streets of Istanbul, for example. You'll definitely see them in Paris and London, New York, and Milan, but you're less likely to see them in those places off the beaten path. Right now, we've actually been spending a lot of time sourcing in what we see as the new fashion capitals of the world. Seoul is a fantastic city. It's such a young, ambitious, hungry population that has its eye out to the West. They're all English speaking. They're all looking to build strong, big brands, because being an entrepreneur in South Korea, unlike in Japan or in other Asian countries, and setting up brands is actually seen quite positively. So on top of that, they live in a country where the cost of manufacturing is lower. So what you get at the end is beautiful products, well designed, at a cheaper price point that you can sell to your customers and and price point, as I'll touch upon it later, is actually a very, very important thing. In terms of the other fashion capitals that we look at, Turkey has been one of the best countries for Batika as a whole. We have several of our top 10 designers that are based in all around Turkey. But Istanbul in itself, I mean, Turkey is the #3 biggest textile manufacturer in the world. It's at a crossroads of civilizations from east and west. It has design aesthetics and heritage from thousands and thousands of years. And that flows into the designs that we're starting to see now come out of Turkey. The new generation of designers there are so passionate and strong about their heritage, and they reflect it in their style and in their products and how they create it in such a modern way that it actually is sellable to other markets like North America and Europe. Actually, our Turkish designers, their #1 market to sell their products is the US. People want to buy something that comes from such a far-off place to them, such a mystical and magical place. Another city where we've been spending a lot of time is Amsterdam. I mean, the Netherlands in general, it's incredible. It's small but mighty. The designers that are based there are very well trained. They're craftsmen. They have a very, very strong heritage when it comes to leather products, especially. And whenever we go to Amsterdam, we discover so many new brands. You know, we just say to ourselves, well, we're not going to keep coming back to Amsterdam. We've just been there again 6 months ago. There's not likely going to be no new brands. On top of that, it's a very entrepreneurial country, so there always are new brands, and I would highly, highly recommend visiting the Netherlands for sourcing and buying new fashion product. Argentina. So this one, Buenos Aires is a little bit of a strange one because you have to be careful. A lot of times they're copying very popular designs that they see in the Northern Hemisphere. But once you dig down a little bit deeper, you actually find a lot of brands that are based on heritage and craftsmanship. I think the biggest percentage of the immigrated population out there is actually Italian. So there's a lot of designers that bring that Italian heritage, craftsmanship, and eye for design in their products. And on top of that, you have access to brands that understand the Latin American aesthetic. So you're very likely, if you're sourcing, in our case, sourcing for Argentinian brands, you're likely to attract customers from Brazil, from Colombia, and the rest of Latin America. And on top of that, it's very young in their style. So if you're looking for products that reflect, let's say, an age demographic of anywhere between 23 to 35 years old, Argentina is, in general, a fantastic, fantastic place to find new brands. Taipei. So they've always been overshadowed by their neighbors, whether it was China, whether it was Hong Kong, whether it was Japan. But there's a renaissance that's happening in Taipei as it relates to not just fashion, but also retail in general. Government subsidies for designers, for people who are launching stores and retail concepts. And on top of that, again, another geography where people are extremely, extremely entrepreneurial. So Taipei is a place where we've actually been finding some very, very strong jewelry brands. Given their proximity to China, they've got access to a lot of precious and semi-precious stones, and they've got a culture of jewelry makers, metalsmiths, goldsmiths, and whatnot. And for us, it's been a fantastic, fantastic hunting ground of jewelry designers. Last, but in my case, never least, Tokyo. Japan to me is one of the countries that understands what it is to sell a product with a story. Because in Japan, when they're selling you a product, they're not selling you just a finished product. They're selling you the whole journey from the very start to the end. Every little detail is thought through. whether it is from the conception stages and they're sketching and on what type of paper they are sketching things, to the production process, how they're picking the various different pieces for their finishing and whatnot, to finally packaging. Everything is thought through. For the Japanese, it's not about the destination, it's always about the journey to get there. And what that gives you at the end of the day is a beautiful story. And that's why we've always been able to find brands with very, very strong stories out in Japan. When you're sourcing, obviously, spend a lot of time thinking about quality and production. We spend once we found a brand that we like from a design aesthetic and their stories, we jump into the quality. Where is it made? Where are your materials coming from? If you're making it in a factory, who's the factory? Who else are they working with? Who else are their clients? To make sure that you're working with a production facility that is ethical, so that you don't have something like the tragedy that happened in Bangladesh a year ago happening again. When you're doing quality control, we always get samples of all the pieces, and we actually wear them. We wear them, we tear them, we have the girls take showers with them to make sure that these are pieces that are not going to get damaged after a few times of normal daily wear and tear. I think a lot of times buyers and shops don't spend the adequate amount of time looking at the quality control side of things. And unfortunately, what that comes out to when you don't do that is high return rates and an angry customer, which is very hard to recover from. Highly recommend to spend a lot of time at looking at quality and production. It's very easy to forget about it when the story is so beautiful and the design is so beautiful. One of my personal favorites as well is spending a lot of time on the maths. In our case, when you're buying and you're sourcing brands that are not well known, there has to be a reason why somebody wants to come and buy a product from a brand that they don't know. Because if somebody has $300 to spend, for example, on buying a bag, they can take that bag to you, they can take that bag to Marc Jacobs, they can take that to Michael Kors, they can take it to several different brands. So pricing is very important, and it's very crucial to get it right. And this is one of the trickiest things when you're sourcing independent brands and small and medium designers, because typically there's a premium in the markups, and that makes things a lot trickier when you're looking to sell it to the end customer, who is then comparing the price points to Michael Kors and Marc Jacobs. So you have to spend a lot of time looking into the details. What are their production costs? What's their production markup? What's the cost of materials? And then, what is the markup that they're suggesting on retail? Is it fair? Look at how it compares to other products in that market and other products at those price points. It's a really important exercise, and a lot of people forget to do it. We also do a lot of price comparison shopping ourselves, because our customers do it. So we try to put ourselves in our customers' shoes and say, okay, well, look at this bag. What would you compare this to what's out there in the market? And based on that, we'll decide whether the pricing is fair or not and makes sense to bring it on board. And in our cases, looking at the data, pricing is one of the crucial factors of success of a brand. Sometimes even more so than story and design aesthetic, which is a real shame. But I mean, we are living in a world just recovering from a financial crisis, so to the customer, every little penny counts. Then also look at the data that you're collecting from your own sales. Data is, I mean, to us, we don't necessarily entirely live and die by it, because there needs to be a little bit of magic as well in the products that you bring on board. But I would recommend that, for 80% of your products and the products that you're going to stock, live and die by the numbers. Look at your rates of sale, your sell-through rates. Look at the returns that those brands that are selling are generating. And as I mentioned, also compare it to what is out there. We've seen an uplift in sales in about 30% from one quarter to the next by just looking at our data and completing a product purge, getting rid of all the product that was not selling, putting forward the product that was, and identifying gaps in our product range by looking at what was selling but had a very low rate of stock. These are all things that you need to look at, and unfortunately, I think in the fashion world, a lot of us tend to shy away from the numbers, and I highly recommend that when you're sourcing and you're buying, that you don't. Then, once you found the product, laying it all out for the customer. So, you know, customers are savvy. They will know if you're lying to them. They'll know if you're trying to sell too hard to them. So what we do is we try to tell the story as human interest-based as possible. When we're telling the stories of our brands and our designers, we're not looking to sell the product. We're genuinely trying to tell the story of that brand, of that designer, and trying to get you to identify yourself personally with that brand, so that then you're going to go ahead and complete the purchase. You might not identify with one of the brands that we put forward to you, but if you keep reading and keep browsing the site, or if this is in the offline world, you keep browsing the shelves in the store, you might find a product that you identify with. And I feel in the offline world, this is where they don't do a real good job in terms of telling the story of the products and the pieces and creating that desire with the customer. The products are just laid out there. You know, what would it take to just put a little label and explain the story? What would it take to actually just get the staff to be very well versed and trained on the story and tell it in a way that almost masks the fact that you're trying to sell this product to the customer? In our case, we like to be transparent. Everything that we do is completely transparent. On the site, you will always know where it's made, how it's made, what materials were used, and where it's coming from. And on top of that, given that we have a messaging system, you can contact the designers directly. And that one-on-one conversation with the customer, with the designer, gives a lot of trust in the customer who's looking to potentially place the purchase. So in the end, if I had to sum up everything in 6 keywords of how I think buying and sourcing should be done in this decade of personalization, is first, personalization. Second, stories. Find products with stories, designers, brands, whatever it may be, the inspiration of the collection. Somewhere there needs to be a story. Tell that story to the customer. Get them excited about the brand. Get them excited about the lifestyle of that brand. And you will discover very, very loyal customers through that. Don't be scared to talk about the provenance, where it's coming from, where it's made, how it's made, the materials that are used. And then think global. Source from the entire world. The world is your oyster. You can find fantastic brands, products in places that you least expected it. Don't just think about the New Yorks, the Londons, the Paris, and the Milans of the world. Of course, make sure that you know what is going on there and the trends that are coming out of those fashion capitals, because it obviously affects the rest of the world. But you're typically going to find some of the more innovative brands, and sometimes at more attractive price points, looking elsewhere. Make sure that you're completely on top of the numbers. Numbers are key. You can almost, in some cases, especially in the online world like us, live and die by them. But make sure that there's also some room for magic. And then finally, be completely transparent to your customers. They will smell a rat these days, customers, if you're trying to be a little bit too fancy, exaggerate a little bit on the descriptions that you're making about the products, they will smell the rat. So be completely transparent with your customers, and then once they know that you're transparent, you will have their trust and their loyalty as repeat customers. I don't know, that's it. If there's any time for questions, I'll take questions. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't hear. So how much we actually changed our roster of designers? So we do a quarterly review of all the designers and brands that are on our website, and we look at various different things from sales metrics to presentation to the collections that they have. And if they're brands that are underperforming, we usually try to come up with some ways to generate the sales, whether it's through promotion on site, whether it's through changing the collection, changing the presentation. And we give it another quarter or two to see if those changes have a positive effect. And if they don't, then we part ways with designers. Every time we do a review, we usually let go of 30 to 40 designers on our website and brands. But on any given year, we're adding about 100, 150. So net, we're always adding more and more brands to the website, because we're actually in range building right now. We've got a lot of jewelry designers, quite a few bags designers, but other types of accessories, scarves, hats, gloves. Those are areas where we can still grow, and men's products as well, which is one of the fastest categories on the website, along with tech accessories and wearable tech. Typically, when we start working with a designer, so given that we're a pure marketplace, they are on consignment. We take a commission on the sale, and the commission that we take is around 35% of the retail price. So designers are making with us, as opposed to other channels such as shops and other online retailers who hold stock, more margin through us. And they can plan their stock accordingly on the website. They're not held to a certain amount of stock. If they don't have any available, they don't have any available anymore. If they want to add more, they can add more. But we typically try to work on a first case basis on that consignment model. But then if we see that this is a brand that's actually taking off and doing really well, we look at sometimes placing orders with them and actually buying the stock ourselves. But we don't have a warehouse where we hold it. We still ask the brands and the designers to hold it and ship it out for us. But we only do that with some of our top brands. But in general, we go with the consignment model. I can understand that it can be a little bit tricky for the designer, but it's still better than in the scenario where you're selling products to shops and boutiques, because their payment cycles are terrible. You'll sell your pieces to a boutique, and you can see the payment on a wholesale order, so at lower margins, anywhere between 3 to 6 months later, and sometimes you're left chasing them as well as a brand or a designer for the payment. Whereas with us, everything is just automatic. We pay our designers every 1st and 15th of each month, provided that they've shipped the piece to the customer, and there's been no refund requests. So I feel that we're actually helping them in that sense, because they're making more margin and they're getting the cash sooner. It's true, we're not placing a huge individual order of 100 pieces and they're selling them one by one to the customers. But in the end, I think that matters to designers. Cash matters, and having cash on hand is key to their growth. Yes? We don't require exclusivity. We like exclusivity, but we don't require it. We let the designer choose when they're joining us, whether they want to be exclusive or not. And exclusivity is only online exclusivity. We don't require any offline exclusivity, given that we're a purely online business. But about 30% of our product and our designers are exclusive to us. And a lot of them have actually made the switch from non-exclusive designers to exclusive designers, given how much volume they were selling through us. Yes, we take the commission down to around 30% for our exclusive designers, and they also they get more promotions, features on the website, and get pushed in a different way than our normal designers do. Sure. We definitely help a lot. We have an internal editorial team. We have the sourcing team itself that helps, and a marketing and PR team that helps you launch on Botica. Every week we launch 2 to 3 brands on the website, and we pick a launching date with them, and we work with them to that launching date. So you have a dashboard, and you can start uploading all your different pieces. You have the photos. You can upload the description, but everything actually goes into a queue before it goes online, which we review. We review the photography, we review the descriptions, we change it up with the consent of the designer, of course, but make sure that the brand is positioned as we have heard it positioned to us from the brand itself. We try to be as true as possible to the designers. So in some cases, they're fantastic at selling themselves and presenting themselves, and doesn't require much work from us. But there are some times where, they're creative types. They're not commercial types. So that's where we come in and where we help them out. It's all done internally. So we have an outbound process and an inbound process. Inbound represents very little percentage of the brands that we bring on board. We receive applications every week on our website, anywhere between 30 to 40 brands. Out of 30 and 40, maybe 2 or 3 will be interesting for us. The majority of the brands that we onboard, we bring them via active outbound origination. So we have an internal team that we call the Style Hunters, who are traveling. They go to trade shows all over the world. They schedule meetings with the designers. They're sourcing on the internet. They're using blogs, magazines, social networks. Tools like Pinterest is fantastic for sourcing new brands, for example. And we also get a lot of referrals from our own designers. And what we found that is interesting, once we have 2 or 3 designers from a particular geography, then we start getting a lot more inbounds from that geography, because it's a small community, designers all know each other, and they'll come and say, hey, well, I'm selling on Botica, it's great, you should come and join too, and then we'll get an intro or an application. We go to schools. We maintain relationships with a lot of design schools like Parsons in New York, Central St. Martin's in London, and go to their graduating classes, their shows. Each year their graduating classes have shows. We'll go and we'll find some of the newer, younger designer and talent that comes out of these schools. But for us, the key is always to be the ones finding them first globally. They might be known or well known in their own geography, but that's fine. But we want to be the first global stockist for the brands that we find, and that's how we think about things.
Hey, just wanted to know, in the menswear category, what products are the fastest selling?
In menswear, ties. We sell a lot of ties, a lot of wallets, a lot of portfolio cases. We also see a lot of growth in tech accessories related to men. So like cases for your phone, for example, for your iPad. all those kind of products.
It's not really apparel based. It's more like accessories.
So we're an accessories only website. We don't sell any apparel.
Right.
So I wouldn't be able to tell you off my own data, but knowing the data of some competitors that actually hold apparel for men, it's mostly shoes and jackets that are growing the fastest at the moment. We want to be the global destination for fashion accessories on the web. We want to be the destination that you come to when you're looking for something that's different and you know that you're not going to find elsewhere, or anybody that you know, friends, colleagues, family, will also own and will be wearing. We're really looking, because there's a gap. If you think about it, there's a lot of websites that come to mind when you want to buy clothes online, whether it's Net-a-Porter, Yoox, ASOS in the UK, Shopbop in the States. Lots of sites come to mind for clothing. When you're thinking about shoes, same thing. You have the Zappos of the world, Zalando, Sorenza in France and Germany. But when you think about accessories, nothing comes to mind. Because accessories is a very personal component of the whole dressing ritual. It's through accessories that you give people a little bit of sense of who you are and what your personality is. And if you think about it, a lot of the accessories that we all own and wear, there's a story attached to it. I was traveling, I found it in a market, I was rummaging the boutiques one weekend and came across this piece. It's a family heirloom, my mom passed it down to me, or whatever it may be. There's always a story with it, and what we're trying to do is take that experience of products with stories, rummaging, traveling, finding what really reflects your style, your personality, your identity, and take it online through the website.
I would like to ask, do you standardize sizes?
Excuse me? We standardize sizes.
Yeah, like do designers have to design according to your size chart?
The website is very, very global in terms of its customer base. Every given month, our brands ship to 60 different countries all over the world on every continent. So when it comes to size, we do share data with them in various different categories. What are the most widely sold styles? But the problem is when we look from geography to geography, it's very different. In the Far East, the sizes tend to be smaller. When we go to North America, sizes tend to be a little bit bigger. And then Europe is something a little bit in between.
So like every designer has his own size chart?
They do, but we do try to give them some advice on what sizes that they should be uploading to the website.
Okay, thank you.
So 50% of our customers are in Europe, 30% in North America, and 20% is Australia, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific. In terms of age, the average age on the website is around 33 years old, and our customer is primarily female. 80% of our customers are female, and even when men are purchasing on our website, they're purchasing gifts for women. And within that 80% female, it's about 50-50 between let's call them urban professionals, 27 to 45 years old, lives in a big city somewhere across the world, multilingual, very discerning in their taste, looking for something different, but don't have the time to go and rummage in boutiques and look for what they want, so they like the convenience of shopping and traveling through shopping online on our website. And then the other 50% is slightly older demographic, around 35 to 55 years old. It's more of a suburban type of customer. In the States, they'll live in Connecticut and New England. In the UK, they'll live in Surrey and Kent and not in London. And they don't have access to an urban center where they can find a lot of brands and a lot of products, so they have time as well to shop online. They have the disposable income because they're generally from wealthy, affluent neighborhoods. So they are looking to get something that is different from the other side of the world and purchase it through our website. Not at the moment, but by Christmas time we will. At the moment, brands ship their products in their own packaging to the customer, And we do check their packaging when we're onboarding these brands and we're in the sourcing process. But I actually think it's quite a nice thing receiving the packaging from the designer. I think a lot of our designers have mentioned how much they love buying from a designer and a brand in India, for example, and the package gets there. It's in a piece of, it's a nice piece of packaging in a piece of Tupperware because of the customs in India. And how people are always stealing things. So if it's in Tupperware, they think it's food and they don't touch it. And then once you open it, it's in beautiful packaging, and you've got all the big stamps from India all over it, and it's part of the experience. And it really instills that you know, one-on-one connection with the brand. And once you have a connection with the brand, it turns into loyalty a lot of times and repeat purchases.
Are you getting any competition in the market?
Competition.
Yeah. And secondly, the margin thing, like you're quoting around 30 to 35%. Do you feel that it's a higher side or?
Do I feel that it is high?
It's on a higher side or?
Ah, okay. In first part of your question, competition. There's nobody who is 100% fashion accessories focused in the market. There are a lot of other curated, selective marketplaces for just fashion in general. So they will sell apparel, they will sell shoes from independent brands and designers, but there's nobody out there who is solely focused on fashion accessories made by independent designers and has such a global footprint as we do. And in terms of your second question on the margins, the 35% on the retail price, we're actually on the lower end of things, because if you're a designer, you're selling products typically at a wholesale price to shops, to boutiques, to retailers, who then turn around, mark it up 2.5%, 3%, and sell it to the end customer. So on the final price of the item, through those channels, as a designer, you're making 30 to 40% margins. Through us, you're making 65, almost double, and double in some cases. So we are charging on the lower side as a retailer, but for our brands and our designers, they are making a lot more of the retail profits than they ever were used to through our channel. Thank you very much.